Welcome to another episode of the Rhythm of the Road podcast. This podcast is not just about the journey, but also about the growth, transformation, and self-discovery that comes with life on the proverbial road. Grab a cup of joe, buckle up, and let's embark on a journey of self-discovery, creativity, and entrepreneurship. Let's get rolling.
You know, as I sit here and I have to watch that countdown of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 before I can actually enter the recording of this podcast, it really helps me understand what it's like, or that waiting or that anticipation of when you're building your craft or building your passion work or building the thing that you're trying to do while you're still working that 9 to 5 or full-time kind of job. And in our culture, and because post 2020, we don't call it the thing anymore. I just say post 2020. Like, so many people have had the opportunity to go build and discover and experience and put into work and put into action things that maybe they've been passionate about, or things they've been thinking about for years and never done, or they had all sorts of time to think on top of doing whatever their normal kind of 9 to 5 or full-time kind of work, or their 3 part-time jobs that they just didn't want to manage that many jobs anymore and that many people and cultures and systems and workplaces and bosses and all the things, right? They all just stack up and they're like, well, I don't want any of that anymore. How do I get through that? And so I want to talk a little bit about my process and how I've done this actually a couple of times, just because, like, I've had seasons in my life. I've had seasons where I've worked full-time jobs and that was what was needed. And then I was able to work on a craft or work on a passion and the things that are my gifts and talents to get me out of that corporate job and move me into my own businesses. And then there's also been times where I've had to go back because maybe there's a season where something didn't go well, or there's a slow season, something of that nature. We still need to take care of our bills and our family, and I have kids and a mortgage and all those kinds of things. So one thing that I began with was really deciding. And I think that's the most important part, is to decide. And if we just do a little language lesson here for a second, to decide means to, like, release all other possibilities. So when I've heard this particular English lesson before, I've heard people use the word "iside," right? In terms of suicide. So obviously in this case, there's an end to a life, right? That is very sad, and all of those things that go with that. However, it illustrates how important it is when we say the word to decide, then we're releasing all other possibilities. And deciding means that you are releasing those other possibilities and you're like, I'm moving forward. And that's that first step. Take that first step, cross over that line, and start moving forward one step at a time. And that might start as like a couple hours a week. That might start as an hour or two in the evening, or whatever your daily full-time work schedule looks like. It gives you some flexibility within inside of that, and just work within the confines of what you have available. Because here's what you're going to begin to experience as you take that first step is, I really like this thing that, even though I'm putting in extra work, I'm maybe taking away from my relaxation time at the end of the day, or my evening cocktail, or my long extended family dinner. Maybe we shorten family dinner from 50 minutes to 40 minutes, right? You start gaining extra time and extra minutes in your day, or maybe you get up a half an hour early and spend a little time. So you start to kind of stack some of those time frames. But what you're going to start to experience in those time frames is the fact that this feels good. This feels right. When I do this, even though it's extra time, extra energy, extra brain power, it actually is bringing me life. It's giving me more energy. It's giving me more brain power. It's allowing me to actually, in some cases, you'll start to experience that it helps your corporate or 9 to 5 feel a little less stressful. Now, we'll talk about what that looks like a little bit later, but you'll start to feel like it's a little less stressful because I know I have this thing that I'm doing over here. And then as you start to build and spend a little bit more time, and then you start to have some small successes within what you're building outside of. Some people call it your side hustle, some people call it a passion project. I just say that you've decided to go live out what you are meant to be here to do. And that 9 to 5 is the gateway to get there. And it allows you to keep some sort of income going if your thing that you're working on doesn't bring that yet. And as it brings it, it will build it. So one thing as you start after that first step is start introducing more times that you can do that. Start telling people that you're doing that, because that is how you're going to actually grow it organically and over time. And decide, again, to decide, is there a time frame that you want this to become the only thing you do? And if you don't have the answer to that right away, that's okay, because you might get into it and be like, I just want this to be my passion project or the thing that I do outside of my corporate job that allows that to be easier. Because don't get stuck in the side hustle mentality that you're literally just side hustling to get out of a corporate job. Now, if that is what you decided, that is a different conversation, but it can also be just a good pairing, a good parallel. What if that's your vacation money? What if that's your travel money? What if that's your, we want to invest in something cool money? That can be just that. And doing that feeds them both. And that's how I started when I was working my corporate job and was doing music. I'm like, I really like the music. It brings me life. It gives me new opportunities. It allows me to meet new people. And it scratches my itch of being a musician and a creator and wanting to have musical conversations with people on stages and then entertain others and influence them that way. And so as I did that, I was like, okay, I really like this. It makes my 9 to 5 that much easier because I know that I have this thing over here that I'm doing, and it adds a little bit of extra money in our bank account, and it just kind of helps build. But the more that I started to do that, the more that for me, it moved into a, this thing needs to happen. I need to do whatever I can to keep building this thing over here so that I can give myself the opportunity later to build it and leave the 9 to 5 piece. Because as I started to do more of that, what I started to realize is the 9 to 5 started to become an angst or something that was frustrating to me. And then the music side started to really build, the creative side. And there was, at some point, there was a shift. And that shift was, I decided once again, like, okay, I'm going to do whatever it takes to build this other thing, and then still maintain what I have going over here as long as I can until it doesn't make sense anymore. Now, some people might say that either I waited a little bit too long, or maybe I didn't wait long enough. I don't know. In some cases, I think I waited just a little too long, but I did it for as long as I could. But what it equated to was like 40 hours or 40 plus hours a week in a 9 to 5, and 40 to 50 hours a week doing my passion, my side hustle, call it whatever you want. I was building a music business. Inside of that, I was like, okay, now I'm working 80 hours a week. Okay, well, if I could just put in 50 or 60 hours a week on music, I could really just kind of dump this. And as long as the numbers make sense and it makes sense for my family, that's what I could do. And at that time, it did. I was able to make that transition. Now, here's one thing that I did throughout that I think has been something that I've saved as a skill set through all of it. And that is, I maintained a good working relationship. I maintained a good personal relationships with everybody in that 9 to 5. In fact, I still see them around town, and this has probably been 15 years since I've been in that job. Is they still say hi to me, and they still say I miss you, or I see them in other places in the community, and they're like, we can commiserate and have fun and have conversations like we had a good personal relationship. And so in doing that, it just always left doors open. So even though you might be doing some of these other things, or you might be growing a new project, or you might be starting a new business, whatever that looks like, you want to do what you can to maintain those relationships and give them the best opportunity that you can, because you don't know what that looks like in the future. You don't know who those people know. You don't know who those people are going to send to you. You don't know how they can be a connection to somebody else, because we all experience opportunities where we've met someone who led us to someone who led us to someone else who led us to a third person, and now you're doing something with that person, and you could have never gotten there without having gone through that journey or that process or that group of people. And so thinking about it from terms of what am I doing back here, it's going to affect and help grow whatever I'm doing for the next thing. And then it just makes it that much more impactful as it flows through all. So that's a lot. And I feel like I barely just scratched over the first step, even though I kind of gave you a little snippet of where my journey started and ended. However, like that first process is to decide that that's what you want to do. And then you're going to have that mindset shift where it's going to allow you to start to doing that and put things back and forth and grow things. And then you'll start to see how it will create a separation if that's what's supposed to happen. And if not, they'll just work really well in parallel. So thank you. If you think somebody needs to hear this, somebody in your group needs to hear this and is just struggling with that, send them this episode, let them take a listen. If you have other questions, make sure to reach out. Make sure to leave a comment down here. Like, what are some things that you struggled with as you were going through this shift from your 9 to 5 to whatever the new thing is that you're doing? I don't even want to call it a craft or passion or side hustle or like what. I don't need to name it. It's just whatever is next for you. And I think that that's important. So leave a comment. I want to say a very special thank you to Box 7 Media and their team for producing this podcast. Thank you. It makes my life a lot easier, and Enticing Media for managing all the things that you're seeing that are super cool and awesome on my YouTube channel. Thank you to all of you who are subscribing and continuing to watch and continuing to support. I will tell you that very shortly, in just a week or two, when this episode launches, we will be releasing the podcast on all of the audio platforms. So make sure that you're watching for them on those as well. But make sure, keep coming back here to watch it live, because you might miss something or you might see something that you really need to. Again, thank you for your time. I appreciate you investing in you, and I'll see you on down the road.
Thanks for cruising with me on this episode of Rhythm of the Road. Remember, the journey itself is the destination. Until next time, keep the rhythm flowing, and we'll see you down the road.